right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Do Hard Things podcast. I'm your host, Jay Teague, certified high-performance coach, leadership trainer, and speaker. And today, I have the honor and privilege of having Dr. Craig Hansen with us today. How are you doing, Dr. Craig?
Amazing. Great to be here with you, Jay.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you here. I'm super excited to have you on because we're going to talk about something that I'm super excited about. I know you're passionate about it. We're going to talk about Do Hard Things Down Under. And I really want to talk about the University of Applied Research and Development out of New Zealand, all the great things that you're doing down there, helping and serving veterans. And so I guess we'll just start off with just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Fantastic. So I was born and raised in New Zealand and married a gorgeous, amazing woman when I was 30. And then we decided to go on an adventure and move overseas and live in Indonesia for 7 years. And we came back to New Zealand during COVID. But that transition time, we decided to grow and set up something we were very passionate about, which was the university. So we got it accredited in the United Kingdom and approved with the VA and accredited in the States. And then we've decided to partner with amazing people such as yourself, who are doing amazing hard things, but helping people achieve their goals. Sometimes there's that disconnection between industry and academics, and we wanted to remove the barriers to people who have incredible skill sets and background and experiences being able to gain an academic qualification. So that was the purpose behind setting up the university. So I'm based in New Zealand. We've got approval to bring people to New Zealand and do amazing things here through the VA. So that's the real focus for what we're doing now, and it's something that keeps us up at night thinking, how can we expand it? How can we grow it? We're really looking forward to bringing a group down with you to do hard things down here in New Zealand as well, very soon in October.
Yeah, I'm excited to come on board as a professor, an associate professor, to be part of all the great things that you're doing, and in this globally accredited university, and just such an amazing place. I think of all the bucket list item places. New Zealand was on my list toward the top, and then when you reached out to me to offer this opportunity, I couldn't think of a reason to say no. So super excited about that. Now, before we get into,
I want to say, Jay, it's absolutely our privilege to have you on the team, to have you leading that part of the faculty, to be one of our professors on the team, to bring the experience that you have from the military in your own life as well. I think that, the quality of what we're able to do is going to take that next step up because of having you on the team and bringing the perspective that you have as well, particularly around team leadership and really pushing through hard things to achieve. So we are delighted and we are honored and we are privileged to have you with us.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fantastic. I'm looking forward to the first the group outing that we're going to have down there, and excited for all the things that we have planned for the course. And I guess could you just tell us a little bit about the university, what programs are offered?
Absolutely. So we first started with an education program, a postgraduate program. So we started delivering a Master's of Education in Southeast Asia, and that's the main program that we have. We have in the current cohort over 100 students. These are directors and owners of schools and principals and heads of department from around Southeast Asia. We also have in Australia our leadership and management programs, led by Danny, Associate Professor Danny. So we have a Bachelor and a Master's program there. We're also developing at the moment with the Institute for Interpersonal Violence in the States, a child protection program, because often the most vulnerable are the ones who get hit hardest when there are disasters or emergencies. So we're developing a postgraduate program for first responders and people who work with children in emergency situations around child protection. We also have our Master's in Business Administration. And one of the really dynamic programs that we have is also our emergency management faculty. So we have our diploma and our bachelor and our master's in emergency management, led by Todd DeVoe, who's really well known, ex-military as well, a veteran such as yourself. You soon will be, I believe, veteran, and he's doing an amazing job. He's one of the presidents in California of the International Association of Emergency Managers. So that emergency management faculty is really dynamic and international and really making a mark in growing leadership, And the way that we do that is to recognize many emergency managers have grown their career through volunteering in the community, and then they get tapped to lead in the local authority, and then they work their way up. But often the skills that they have, the experiences that they've had, the connections that they've made, the leading and responding in really difficult situations is not academically recognized. But when you tie their experiences back to the learning outcomes of our academic programs, there's an incredible match. So that's something that we're very, very passionate about is emergency management. It's really a core part of what we do in the university internationally.
Yeah, there's such a need for that. And what I appreciate is the given that there's a need and really focus on leadership, it's better preparing people to deal with these emergency response, which requires leaders. And I love the fact that there are a lot of veterans that serve and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do after their service. And I think that they're very well suited to deal with these in these types of roles. And so I appreciate that that's a focus.
Absolutely. When you think about the deployments that people have done, the teams that they've led, the skills they've had to learn, because you're going into very difficult situations. The situation is very critical. It's often life or death. There's been absolute trauma in the environment where you are. There's uncertainty. You're leading a team of people who come from really different backgrounds, and they've been molded together in the military. But also, people bring their background, they bring their experiences, they bring their perspective. So how do you actually lead diverse teams and have them mold together under one vision, with that perspective, that vision that the commander has, and to make sure that that's achieved given the fluid nature of the environment that you're in? That really speaks to making a difference in emergency situations and disasters and earthquakes and tsunamis where community people have been moved out of their homes, their home has been destroyed, there's been a fire, they may have lost loved ones, there's uncertainty around the basics of shelter, safety, food, not knowing where their loved ones are. And so really, people from the military have this huge experience being able to master their own emotions, leading a team and gelling together, responding with what is just available to get by and to move forward. That type of experience is incredibly valuable. And emergency management as an industry, I think COVID has really highlighted this, that people who have that training, that background, that experience are so needed, haven't been honored, but deserve to have a seat at the table to really make a difference.
Absolutely. So the program itself, what makes the University of Applied Research and Development stand out, and why should someone travel all the way to New Zealand or participate in the program?
Because we're awesome.
I know. How can you? That's a softball question. Who doesn't want to go to New Zealand?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people have coming to New Zealand on their bucket list. So I think particularly for veterans, people that have just transitioned out of the military, it's often that time of, what do I do now? How can I continue to make a difference and to serve? Where do I want to lead? What career do I want to develop? What do I want to do in terms of creating a legacy? And so having this opportunity to come to New Zealand and being on a tourist visa in New Zealand means you get 3 months as an American to live here and experience the beauty of New Zealand. So you think about coming out of your normal environment, the hustle and bustle of life, the pressures, and just moving down to New Zealand for a period of time. So we're planning on doing the do hard things over 10 or 12 days, and then they have the opportunity to stay longer and experience the beauty of New Zealand. So if you think about Waiheke Island, it's not far from Auckland where I live. It's only, I think, if memory serves me correctly, a 60-minute boat ride. On that beautiful island, there's vineyards, incredible cafes, there's kayaking, hiking, there's mountain biking. So if you imagine hiking up a mountain or a hill, I need to say kind of a high hill, not really a mountain, but hiking up a mountain and pausing at the top to consider, well, as we look out and we consider the beauty of creation, and we consider where we've come from, what do we envisage for the next 1, 5, 10 years in our life? How do we take those leadership experiences we've had, the traumatic, devastating experiences that we've walked into, or the times when we've led a new initiative and brought real change and brought something really significant to the organizations we've been in? How do we want to take that and stand on that as a platform to to make a difference going forward. So having that space and that time in a beautiful environment to sample great New Zealand wine, to be in the beautiful environment, to have an incredible meal, talk with like-minded people who are discussing and thinking where to from here, to hear from some leadership experts who have done amazing things such as yourself, and to just take that time out to do that. I think that's one reason which is really, really important. Number two, New Zealand's a pretty safe country. You can come over here and we can walk through forests. We can look at the dolphins and whales. We can ride on a horse. We can sample some incredible New Zealand cheese and be in the safe environment, beautiful environment, and think, okay, going forward, if I want to take that step up in the corporate environment and lead a team of diverse people and bring inclusivity and learn how to lead when there are 4 generations in the workplace, when it's never been like that before, how do I do that when I can't say do it because I told you so? I'm giving you an order. We need to lead teams by recognizing what are the motivations of the people in our teams. How can we bring alignment between the organization and its goals, the goals and ambitions of the people, and bring those two together so we can both move forward. We both sense the organization is growing. We're reaching our goals and our vision, but also the person has that sense of significance, achievement, and success at the same time, and really developing that growth mindset together as an organization and as a person. So learning how to do those things from leadership experts. And also really because our focus is the VA has approved for veterans to come to New Zealand and study through emergency management, think about that particular industry. Do we want to make a difference in that industry? How can we bring our skill sets and training and background into that industry? What are the opportunities to maybe volunteer in community, maybe take actually a professional role in an organization, maybe not just be in the States, but internationally. There are organizations that are crying out for people with the skill sets that veterans have, and those people who are going to come down and be with us to do hard things in New Zealand. So I would say, if you're at any of those points of transition or thinking where to from here, or want to consider the emergency management industry, this is a great opportunity.
Yeah, from an educational standpoint, and I really like what you said earlier about military veterans that might be transitioning, because a lot of veterans are transitioning from service and they're going into their education so they can join the workplace. But what a great time to just step away and reflect. And when I was an instructor in the military, I think some of the best learning outcomes were in those moments where we could actually step out and you're fully immersed, whether it be in a field environment or just somewhere outside the classroom where you just have nothing else you're just focused at what's at hand. And when you're in New Zealand experience, it's like tourism meets education with a little bit of adventure in there. I think that you can, from a learning perspective, you're going to be able to really take in a lot of information. And the lineup of professors that you have, if you just go through and read the bios, and I've connected with a couple of them, phenomenal group of instructors that you have in the program that with real life practical experience. It's not just people that are just academically trained. These are instructors that have real world experience. And I've always found that to be the best instructors they have real experiences and they take personal stories and they can tie that in to the learning. And so phenomenal bench of professors that you have.
I really love the book by Atul Gawande. He writes about the Checklist Manifesto. I don't know if you've encountered that yet.
I haven't. I'll write that one down.
Really great, the Checklist Manifesto. And he's a surgeon and a trainer of surgeons. And he really emphasizes in the book the power of checklists. So surgeons who actually follow through and develop their checklists and implement them and ensure that everyone on the team uses those checklists. It's something like a 40% reduction in mortality after surgery just by using a checklist. And another example that he mentions is Van Halen at their peak, when they were traveling through America and visiting much smaller towns, but taking massive semi-trailers, bringing all of their gear, and they would walk straight to the back of the stadium where there was the place where the musicians were, the green room, and they would go straight to the bowl of M&Ms and look for any brown M&Ms. And if there are any brown M&Ms there, they would say, okay, stop. we're either going to cancel the concert or we walk through all of the 127 odd checklist items that needed to be done pre-production before they took the stage. And the power of a checklist is that they had on their checklist right near the end, no brown M&Ms. And if the production manager can't get that right, then something else might be wrong. Mm-hmm. And so the power of a checklist to make sure things go right, and just tying that together with what you said about being around people who have a higher perspective, different experiences, who have proven leadership, who can bring principles and practice together. I think being able to spend time with those people and develop your checklist, make that action item list of where you want to go to from here. Because when people have been maybe out of the military for quite some time, but they're thinking, okay, I want to take that step up in my career or my industry, or move to another industry and not lose what I've done, but move that into as a platform and a stepping stone for my next stage. Having that checklist with the wisdom and experience of people who maybe are that one step forward, and then being able to execute that one by one by one. There's really power in making those small steps consistently and logically with that perspective of a higher level. And I think if we giving people time to do that and the space to do that without the hustle and bustle of day-to-day life is really quite powerful for them to step into that next season, that next time, and then go, okay, here I go, here's my plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell us a little more about the program itself? It's an accelerator program. There's a couple of different options, but what are some of the nuances of the program itself?
So the program, the visit in New Zealand, the time in New Zealand is really around leadership. And this is why having you as part of the team is so important, Jay. So really around leadership and leadership in times of crisis. So the Faculty of Emergency Management really focuses on that, thinking and leading and building a team and dealing with crisis situations, dealing with conflict, and how you handle that when it really does matter because it's life or death. How do you work with other agencies to make sure the resources are there that need to be there to respond in difficult situations? And again, just to go back to what I said before about the inclusivity, diversity, dealing with different generations, no one's had to do that before. And we've come out of a time of COVID and we're rebuilding. Mm-hmm. And people have had a lot of challenges that maybe we don't recognize, around mental health, lack of social inclusion, distancing from others. And so we're really, not only are we trying to build ourselves and establish ourselves, but we're trying to help others to rebuild from a time of isolation, a time of lockdowns, a type of separation. And so this course at this time is really focused on how do we take the step up ourselves, move into the emergency management industry, and think about leadership in times of crisis. So the do hard things perspective is really, really important. So during that time that people are in New Zealand for that 10 or 12 days for the initial intensive, we're recognizing people's background, previous training and experience to give them credit, academic credit for that. These are particular courses, academic courses, as part of our program and our qualification. If someone hasn't done their bachelor, it's at the bachelor level, the assessments. If someone has already done their bachelor, it's at the master's level of the assessments, focused on leadership in a time of crisis. So it's that particular set of courses. If people want to stay in New Zealand, after the intensive of the 10 or 12 days, they can stay up to 3 months and complete the other block of courses they need to do, then either stay in New Zealand or they can move back to the States and continue online. So it gives them that opportunity to really double down on the leadership side and then extend if they want to into that career and finish off that master's or that bachelor degree.
I love the fact that not only are you learning a specific, topic in emergency management leadership, but you're also getting the learning of being immersed in other culture with students from around the world. I know part of the curriculum is to, we're going to actually go talk to some New Zealand first responders, and you're going to get like a variety of perspectives outside of your own that are going to be incredibly unique.
Yeah, so Auckland is the largest city in the country by geography and the number of the population here, because we're a small country. In New Zealand, around 5 million people. In Auckland City, where I am, it's over 1 million people here, and just in this region. So we have the Auckland City Council, and we have to respond to a number of different, not big scale disasters all the time, but really responding to emergencies and community. So we have in the Auckland City Council an emergency response team that leads across the region, which is geographically quite large and quite diverse, and leading across this region with different agencies, different organizations, whether they're volunteers, whether they're the fire service, whether it's the military, whether it's corporate organizations, and bringing together all of them under one command structure. So we've been invited to actually go to the Auckland City Council, be in their command centre and hear from the leaders that are doing that day to day. And that's just one example of people who are really leading at that top level in our region geographically, so that our participants in the course and people who are doing hard things with us in New Zealand can get that exposure to people and ask questions. And some of those people in those teams are actually from the New Zealand military, so there'll be some shared experiences there as well. And I absolutely agree with you. There's wisdom in many counsellors. So it's great to have different people you can talk to from different backgrounds and experiences, but also to have that connection of, hey, I was in the military as well. Hey, I've been in that type of situation before. Not in that industry, but hey, I've been in a situation like that. And I can see how the skills I have, the experiences I have can really lead and make a difference in that area.
Absolutely. I just recently had an interview with someone who just recently moved from South Africa. So they're South African. They just moved to the States. And I asked him, like, hey, what's one of the things that you found to be fascinating or just something completely different in our culture versus theirs? And the one thing he said was when they call a first responder, whether it be a police or ambulance, it could take 15 or 20 minutes before someone there gets a hold of someone, and they still in their communities. Like I guess they had a volunteer organization where you're a citizen and you volunteer as a first responder, because here in the States, if you call, like, it's just pretty well 911, someone's going to be in your house. It just really stood out to me that that's something that we take for granted here in the States, because I just found that fascinating that they still operate under that system.
Parts of New Zealand do as well. So in this last week, I've been down in the south of the North Island. So Auckland is in the top of the North Island, much warmer weather. I was down in the south of the North Island running a drone program, which we have, where we train teachers and educators and young students and high school students how to use drones, small ones and big ones, and talking about different industries where they can use those drones and the technology to solve real world problems. One of our advisory board members from New Zealand has now moved to Mexico, and they're protecting power plants in Mexico from terrorist drones using AI and using drones, all the way from little old New Zealand. And so we have these different levels of response. But in New Zealand, in this town where I was, this region, I heard the siren go. And the siren was very loud, like a big foghorn. And it went for about 15, 20 seconds. And it was in the middle of the night. And what that siren means is, hey, there's been a fire or there's been an emergency. So the volunteers in that local area who are trained firewomen and firemen, they'll jump out of bed, they'll get in their car, they'll race to the fire station, put on their gear, and they'll go to whatever's happening. And so that's the community emergency response teams that we have in New Zealand. And that's many of the smaller parts, outlying regions of New Zealand still do that. They have their volunteer services. There might be someone who's teaching a class or, a corporate leader, and they're in the middle of a meeting and they hear the siren goes and they're up and out of there because they've made that commitment. That's what they honor. That's what they do. Everyone around them knows that, hey, when that person's running out of a meeting, there's something going on. And so we have that in many places around New Zealand. And then in the larger centres, we have our professional firefighters and our professional emergency responders as well. So there's that great variety, but you sense with all of them, there's this shared commitment. There's this shared understanding of the vision that they have to save lives and respond immediately with everything they have. It's a very dynamic environment to be in. Being around those people, I guess it's like being around veterans. It's about being around people who have got that commitment to put themselves there on the line to protect others, save lives, and meet the objective.
Yeah, there's something unique about being around other people that will run toward a fire where others are running away.
Yes.
Like it's just a different perspective. And it's that perspective of service. And I think that a lot of veterans who definitely feel lost or they don't know what to do after their service, they need to find whatever that is, that calling that, you sense it, or I think you either sense it or you don't, if it's part of your wiring and you're away from it. Cause there's a lot of service members that they have trouble transitioning because they don't know what to do next. I highly recommend finding some way to continue to serve, because that's the one common characteristic from all of us that
Yeah.
serve.
I'd love to speak to that because I've had the privilege of having conversations with many great veterans such as yourself. In our Veteran Stories podcast series, I interviewed over 40 veterans, people that were currently serving in the military, people that had just transitioned, and those that have been out for some time. And the common theme for those that have been out of the service for some time is the lack of support or lack of information or lack of connection. When they leave the military, there's that lack of someone to really say, hey, this is your next step. This is what we're going to do next, sorting out your employment, your accommodation. Hey, have you got some challenges? Do we need to get some counseling? Can we, hold your hand as you move forward with this? Or at that next level of, hey, what do you want to do with your life? What are your aspirations? What are your career goals? And education is part of that. Traditionally, that's always been that problem. As you're out, you're gone, and they step out of the military and they're in community, and what do I do now? Where's my band of brothers or sisters who always had my back? Now I'm alone and I have to fend for myself. And that theme has been really consistent. So I think just to take this opportunity to say, for those of you that have transitioned out as a veteran and you feel that there is that sense of where to from here, what is my purpose now? Everything that you've done, nothing is lost. Everything that you've done is really worthwhile, incredibly valuable, and has high esteem out here in the civilian world. Often it's just about finding your place. And this opportunity to come to New Zealand is about that. It's about helping you to have that space and that time, that support, that team of like-minded people around you so that you can think where to from here, and to know that what you've done is incredibly valuable. From the university side, everything that you've done as a veteran, everything that you've done does actually carry some academic credit. And often universities don't know how to make that connection unless it's very clear, okay, you've done a business course or you've done some maths and we can tick that box. We actually take one step lower than that and we look and think, okay, what are the experiences you've had? What are those skill sets that you've brought? What are those understandings that you've developed that actually match the learning outcomes at that foundational level of time management, communication, leadership, problem solving, leading a new initiative. There's often not a learning outcome around that in usual university courses, but in terms of emergency management, wow, those are critical. So everything you've done when you've stepped out of the military and thought, where to from here, is incredibly valuable in community, incredibly valuable in emergency management, incredibly valuable in corporations. So nothing that you've done was a waste of time. None of those experiences are lost. All of them are a platform that you can stand on. So I do want to affirm you're incredibly valuable. Never think that you are. I'm sure you'd affirm that as well, Jay.
Absolutely. Well, there's been times when I was really thinking about transitioning from the military, what am I going to do with myself? Just the thought of working in corporate America, I'm like, this isn't part of my DNA. I've got to find a way to continue to serve. And I connected the dots to me personally that teaching and instructing and coaching and leadership, I need to utilize those skills because those are the things that I'm most passionate about, and that I can utilize these skills beyond service. And once I figured that out, I'm like, okay, I'm all in. I'm ready for my next mission. But for the longest time, I was scared. And I think a lot of veterans go through that. Maybe they stay in longer than they thought they would or could, or they're nervous about getting out because they're trying to find their way. And, that's a big part of my coaching now is helping people transition and help them find clarity and help them find their, align them with their overarching purpose into their calling. And what I've learned is that we have different roles in life and we have different stages in life. And we need to be able to seamlessly transition from one to the other. So veterans that are departing the service, like you said, you have a tremendous amount of marketable skills and experiences. We just have to change the vocabulary. Jeff Cockrell, who's a former veteran and also a veteran coach, he gave me this great analogy. He's like, you grew up in civilian society learning the rules of soccer. Maybe you call it football. What do you call it in New Zealand? Football?
Soccer.
Okay, so you call it soccer. Okay, all right. Some countries call it football. But you learn the how to play soccer. And then when you join the military, they teach you how to play full contact rugby. The uniforms look the same. The ball might be a little different. You're on a pitch, but it's full contact. They're teaching you to be aggressive, and you can't tackle people in soccer, but you tackle people in rugby. You learn the rules of rugby, you get really good at rugby, and then eventually you have to leave the service. They no longer need you, or you decide to leave. And then you got to go back in the civilian world where the rules of soccer apply. And you're confused because the uniforms look the same. The pitch looks similar. You got your ball and you go tackle somebody and you think that you just scored a touchdown, and they're like, no, that's a foul. Like, here's a red card. And you're just like, what the hell? And it's realizing that you're going to have to relearn the rules of soccer once again. And that's where a lot of veterans kind of struggle. And the ones that don't want to relearn the rules are the ones that struggle the most. And so that really helped me like understand, like, yeah, I have to do the work myself and relearn the rules. And a lot of veterans get frustrated because they're like, no, I'm playing rugby. And that's all I want to play. So you have rugby down there in New Zealand?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So the All Blacks, obviously the All Blacks are world champions at the moment. They're going through a little bit of a slump, and rugby's so ingrained into the New Zealand culture that when the All Blacks lose a test, which is a game of rugby, right? When they lose a game, the nation takes a breath. And we sort of wait, and there's a collective holding of our breath. Then there's the next test or the next game. If they lose a game, everything erupts. It's on social media, it's on the news, everyone's talking about it. The nation has taken a kick to the pants. We're wondering what's going on. We're never going to be great again. Everything needs to change. Fire the coach. Everything's devastation and worry and concern. And then they win, and okay, all right, okay, we're back on track now. So for the All Blacks, I think it's 5 losses in a row, and they've just won against South Africa, which you mentioned earlier. And so the nation's thinking, okay, this is not good enough yet. It's only one win, because we have such a long history of winning, such a long history of being world champions, and having such a long history of winning on every turf in every country around the world. When you have that history of success, it's very hard to handle failure. And handling failure and recognizing failure is not the end. Within the seeds of within failure, there's the seeds of success. If you take the time to pause, reflect, analyze, as you do in the military, do your after-action reviews, think, okay, what was our plan? What did we intend to achieve? Where did it go pear-shaped? What are we going to learn from that? What are we going to implement now that's different? And I think that part of being an emergency manager and part of moving into that industry and either doing a different job but doing that as a volunteer to keep serving, is understanding that emergency managers are always doing after-action reviews. They're always looking in failure to see where can we find success. They're always finding failure, even when it was a success. They're going, how do we get better? And that's part of that, as I mentioned before, the growth mindset. And recognizing what are our productive actions and what are our non-productive actions, and how can we eliminate those non-productive actions as fast as possible, and how do we focus on what is most productive to get the biggest wins. And so I think as a nation, New Zealand needs to have a bit of a bigger growth mindset when it comes to rugby, but it's a great analogy for veterans, for high school leavers, for anyone who's thinking about, like me being 51, thinking about what do I want to do with the second half of my life. And rather than investing into myself, I really want to invest into people. And that's given me a different perspective when I turned 50, thinking, how can we use what we've got with the university to think about what did we do before? What didn't work? How can we do it better? How can we open this up to more people? And partnering with someone like yourself, Jay, having you on the faculty and doing hard things down here in New Zealand and bringing veterans down just opens up this wider opportunity to use what we've got to give more people an opportunity to think where to from here and make that meaningful change in their life. And to be encouraged to think you may have failed before. It doesn't mean you're going to fail tomorrow. Forget about the past, learn from it, focus on today and the steps you need to take today to move forward to the success tomorrow, and recognize if there's going to be a failure, if there's going to be a fall down, who's around you to bring that perspective and to lift you up and say, okay, bro, you got this. In New Zealand, we say bro a lot. So,
bro.
Okay, bro, you got this.
All right. No, I love it. Yeah. Failures, when I look back at failures, and I have to be reminded this, and that's what the doing the growth mindset work, it's hard to take failure initially, but then it's like, okay, what you use that AAR process. What were the lessons learned from that? And I've realized that a lot of failures is a necessary path that we have to walk through so we can become the greatest version of ourselves and help other people. So it's just a different perspective shift when it comes to failure. So if there's a veteran listening to this, how do they apply? What are the nuts and bolts of the process to come down there and take advantage of the program?
Fantastic. They can come to uard.university, or they can reach out to you as well. We'd love to have people just reach out to us so we can have a conversation. I'm in New Zealand, but I think I sleep about 4 or 5 hours a day because I'm always open to chatting with people about coming to New Zealand. So you can always reach out to us through the website, on any page, on any contact form. Just drop a message. I'm interested to coming to New Zealand as part of the Veterans Program, and we will respond. We can jump on Zoom, can jump on Google Meet, can jump on Skype, can jump on an Albatross, whatever it is that we need to do to have a conversation to help you get down here.
Yeah, I've got an application link, and it's pretty. You just submit the application, and then you process it from there, and then there's some action steps to see if you're able to. There's some nuances to getting into the. New Zealand. Can you give us a quick overview of like how the GI Bill benefits work for those?
I'm glad you asked that. That's really good. So we use a very simple Google form to capture the details that we need: your personal information, social security number, your background, your transcript, those sorts of things. Then immediately I go to the VA, and through the VA system called VA Once, then I enroll you there, and then it comes back to us with what your allowances are, your credit that's available, your benefits that are still intact that you can use to come down to New Zealand. So there's two types of benefits that you can get. One is the tuition benefit, and the other is the accommodation benefit. That's around $1,800 a month. And just for perspective, that's about 2,800 New Zealand dollars, which can well cover accommodation and food and travel. But we, for that 10 or 12 days as part of the intensive, we actually cover that for you as part of the program, because it's part of the tuition, part of the course, or the experiences are part of that. So the tuition and the accommodation, you just pay that to us, and we do everything for you for that 10 or 12 days of do hard things in New Zealand. And then if you want to stay longer, then you've got the accommodation benefit, which covers your food and covers your accommodation. Now, everything around that, we'll just manage that all for you. We'll help you with your tickets. We have a step-by-step guide, which we'll send to you the moment that you enroll. It's all automated, and you get that link. So it tells you the step-by-step guide. To get a visa for New Zealand is very simple. It's an online portal. You fill in your information, enter your passport details, and then it's processed electronically. Sometimes it's 20 minutes and it's done. And that's the e-visa. So when you arrive in New Zealand, you've already got that. You just print it out, turn up with your passport, hand that over, and you're in the country. You can stay up to 3 months as a tourist, pop over to Australia, come back to New Zealand on the weekend, and then you can stay for another 3 months as a tourist in New Zealand participating in our program. Now, for those of you that are vaccinated, I need to say this, that's great. New Zealand does require vaccination to come to New Zealand. We used to have pre-arrival screening. We've scrapped that, so you don't have to do that at all. It's a very costly and slow process to have a test. You just do need to be vaccinated, though.
Okay. No, all good information to know. And if somebody wanted to stay there for the full 3 months, what does accommodation look like, and how do they? What could they expect to spend on lodging and accommodation? What's the difference between the US dollar and the New Zealand?
So a single room, which has its own amenities, will run between $200 and $400 a week. Food might be $150 a week, depending on what you eat, $150 to $200 a week. So really you're looking at around $500 to $600 a week for your basics. So your housing allowance will really cover that from your VA benefits, from your GI Bill, your post 9/11 bill.
So 500. What's the New Zealand currency? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's the New Zealand dollar.
Just the New Zealand dollar. Okay, so you're talking okay. I just want to confirm that's New Zealand dollars, not
New Zealand dollars, 500 or 600. So you're looking at $300 to $400 American dollars per week. Will cover things for you down here in New Zealand. If you're living with other people, because we have a lot of people in New Zealand go flatting. I don't know what the term is in America, but being in a large house with one or two or three other people, that can be $150 a week. So it can be much cheaper in terms of accommodation. So, and we can help you do that. If you're coming over with us for the short-term stay, then that's all hotel and Airbnb accommodation. But staying for the 3 months or staying longer and renewing that's a more semi-permanent, shorter-term, mid-term accommodation where you really want to have your own space. And so we'll help you find that, whether that's flatting or having a single room apartment.
Awesome. So there you go. There's the breakdown. And the only thing that the student has to pay for is really just the ticket there.
Just the airfare.
Yeah, just
Once
the
you're
airfare.
here, you're here. Now, the online visa application, which is really quick, I think it costs between $35 and $70, depending on the extension or the time of the visa. So just keep that in mind. It's about $75 in total if you do the extension automatically online.
That's awesome.
Pretty quick.
Yeah. Is there anything else that they would need to know?
Not really. New Zealand doesn't have a lot of diseases. So when I went to that are not managed. So when I went to Indonesia and lived in Southeast Asia, we had to have polio and hepatitis and all of those types of vaccinations.
Yeah.
When you come to New Zealand, I don't think you need to have any of those vaccinations. We're a pretty safe country. We manage our borders. And just so everyone knows, New Zealand has just really, in the last 3 or 4 months, opened up the borders of New Zealand for people to come in. So this is why this is such a big deal to us as a country, such a big deal to UARD, our universities, such a great opportunity with Do Hard Things down in New Zealand. New Zealanders and tourism operators and cafes and restaurants, we are so excited to welcome you to New Zealand. You're going to have an incredible time. You're going to be made very, very welcome because we've been waiting for nearly 3 years for you to come.
Yeah, that isolation of COVID has really done a number, and I know it's exciting that you guys have opened the borders, and I'm sure the economy is ready to have visitors, right?
Come on.
Yeah, come on down. No, it's exciting. I'm truly excited about the partnership working, and just the phenomenal experiences we're going to have with the students down there. Mixing academics with some tourism and some confidence building exercises. Is going to be fantastic. So I look at my educational path. I'm like, man, I wish I would have known about a program like this when I'd go back and do it all over again. So this is going to be a really cool opportunity, very unique, and I appreciate you putting it together.
Jay, I'm really, really excited, and I want to thank you. And I do want to say thank you for your service, Jay. It doesn't get said enough to veterans and those that have served. And so thank you for your service. Thank you for what you've done. And I know that what you're going to do, impacting people's lives, having a bigger vision for their life, understanding how to do hard things and keep moving forward, climb that mountain, take that hill and keep moving forward. I know it's going to be really powerful. And through Do Hard Things, you're going to make a real impact on people's lives. And I am really excited, and we're really privileged to have you on the team, Jay, going forward.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Dr. Hansen. Is there anything else? Any final thoughts or anything else we need to know about you, New Zealand, UARD?
Yeah, look, I think everyone on the faculty, and you mentioned that they're high caliber people, we all recognize that industry and academics and the pace of change has really sped up. And during COVID, it forced us to think about how can technology be used to keep people communicating. And so communication technology has really, really changed. People can just, like this, jump on a Zoom or a StreamYard or a Google Meet or a Teams meeting. And people have started to become really familiar with that. And it's a great reminder that the pace of change has actually taken a step up. And now that COVID is, we're living with COVID, we're moving on, we don't even need to say the C word anymore. There is an incredible opportunity to think, how do I want to do things different with this next season in my life? And see this opportunity to come to New Zealand as a time to have like a New Year's opportunity. When you make your resolutions and then you forget about them. This is one of those New Year's resolution opportunities in the middle of the year and towards the end of the year to set yourself up. Those opportunities don't come along every day, every month of the year. So I'm really excited that despite what we've been through, what is in front of us is so much bigger and so much better and so much more full of opportunity. And I would love everyone who's listening to this and watching this to see the next season of their life as being so much bigger and so pregnant with opportunity. And if you see it as that, and if you have that sort of mindset and that perspective, great things will come. Because how your perspective goes, so does your life. So I really want to encourage you. Great things are going to come.
Absolutely. I love it. We are definitely I feel like we're in a big transition
Yes.
around the world. I love the fact that, here we are, we're having this great conversation. You're halfway across the world, 17 time zones later. And, the world is much, much smaller now because of technology. And it's an exciting time. It's an interesting time.
It is.
So,
It is.
well, I appreciate you taking the time to be here. For those listening, you can go to uard.university and reach out to me directly, because I'll have all the information, applications, all that kind of stuff. Or if you want to contact the university directly, you're more than welcome to do that. And I look forward to coming down there and shaking your hand here pretty soon, Dr. Hansen.
Awesome. Thanks, Jay. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you, guys. For everyone else out there, keep doing hard things. We'll see you guys.